Unbind him and let him go. If the ministry of Jesus is about anything, it's about unbinding us from that which prevents us from living the abundant life God desires for us. It is his desire that we experience true release from anything that drags our spirits down, that drowns out the joy of life, that messes up relationships, or makes us feel lost or stuck in life. Jesus' command to the people to unbind Lazarus and let him go can be understood in a couple of ways. There's, of course, the literal understanding. The grave cloths that were wound tightly around him needed to be removed. His body needed to be freed up so that he could resume his daily life in this world. And while this second opportunity for earthly life was an amazing gift to him, Lazarus would now need to face a second physical death at some point in the future, and all the issues that come with the dying process. And his family and friends would need to endure yet a second round of grief and loss. So in some ways, this gift to Lazarus was a bit of a mixed blessing. A second and more profound way to understand the words unbind him and let him go is to see them as an invitation from Jesus to us to allow him to unbind our lives so that we too may be released, if you will, from situations that restrict and hold us back. And here I'm thinking about issues such as the fears and worries that can paralyze us from making decisions or from taking needed actions in order for our lives to move forward. I'm thinking about addictive behaviors that on many levels are so hard on our lives and can lead to a life that spirals completely out of control. Some of that which binds some of us are unhealthy perfectionistic tendencies that can be paralyzing and energy intensive to deal with. I feel that in my own life in particular many times. Moral failures and shame can severely undermine our sense of worth and kind of close us down. Other personality traits we might have that seem impossible to change and which interfere with developing and maintaining healthy relationships are sometimes part of our lives. These too can be great and binding burdens to bear. All of us deal with some issues like these that can very much bind up our lives and make us feel less of the person we know we could be and that we desperately want to become. It's part of who we could, it is as if part of who we could be as fully mature and well-functioning people is blocked and prevented from being fully expressed. I would suggest that these sorts of issues are like grave cloths for us in a sense, wrapping us tightly so we're unable to do what in our heart we want to be able to do. It is as if part of who we could be is indeed blocked and prevented from being expressed. Sometimes these issues are the result of generations of family members who unconsciously have passed these issues down to us, which make them particularly ingrained in our own personalities. Traumatic events or a history of poor decision-making can bind us up emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. We need help. We need divine help. Personal counseling from a skilled therapist can play a powerful role in unbinding a stuck life. And it's our belief as Christian people that the healing and unbinding mercies of Jesus can flow to us through these highly trained professionals. So too with AA groups and other 12-step programs. Evidence that God can work powerfully through these organizations to unbind and transform our lives is well known. And we believe, too, that modern medicines are amazing gifts from God, real miracles that many who suffer from psychological conditions find absolutely life-giving and unbinding. For those who suffer from guilt and shame, making a confession in the presence of a priest or pastor can be reassuring to them of God's presence and forgiveness, and provide sometimes a really life-changing release. And sometimes, for reasons known only to God, he simply answers our prayers for an unbound life directly. Our faith is that there are many, many ways through which Jesus can come into our lives and free us from the issues that trouble us so much. And so the question becomes, will we take advantage of any of them? It's critical to trust that Jesus can act in these ways in our lives, if invited to do so. Our faith is that the Spirit of Christ is always present within us, as the Romans lesson underscored today. The Spirit of Christ is always present within us and always working to encourage us to become our very best selves. Also, we need to accept that God's timeline for this unbinding work in our lives is, in fact, his time. Our desire for more immediate relief is understandable, and sometimes God grants that relief. But more often, his work with us will be more gradual, as God's Spirit senses that a slower unbinding is best for us. It's absolutely true that God's healing work in our lives is often mysterious and can be experienced in unexpected ways, but it'll always be done in his time, not ours. But he can be trusted to do this life-freeing work. When we're baptized, we renounce the devil and all his ways, all the evil forces of the world. And we do that because it's the mission of the devil to do all that he can to clog up the gears of our lives and separate us from our true selves. His efforts toward this end are unrelenting. We all know how pervasive temptation's power is in our lives. But God's love for us is also unrelenting. And his desire is always there to help us come to a rich and fulfilling life. One of the goals of a Lenten season, I think, is to gain greater insight into those habits of ours and our ways of thinking that tend to bind up and drag down our lives. And then to re-surrender, if you will, our life to Jesus and to the power of divine love to break those chains that hold us down so tightly. This isn't easy spiritual work, and it's always will be a lifelong process. But when Jesus instructs his friends and family, or the friends and family of Lazarus to unbind him and let him go, he's also speaking to us, to you and to me, that we too may be unbound from fear, unbound from insecurity, unbound from hopelessness or shame, so that we may experience more of the fullness of life that God desires for us. One author I read puts it this way: resurrection life begins here in this life before it continues in the life to come. Not all of God's promises about heaven are delayed, and he does have an active interest in what happens to our earthly bodies as well as he does for our heavenly souls. Lenten blessings to all of you. Amen.